An optimist. If you ever know someone who's just optimistic, they have a sparkle about their life. There's just something that just shines about an optimistic person. They have an attraction, and it pulls others to them. I want you to understand, you are the only thing that is going to pull someone to this church. You're the only thing that is going to pull anyone to this church. People are going to see you, and they are going to judge everyone else in this building based on our attitudes and our outlooks and what we might act like. Matthew chapter 5, for just a moment. I want to get Jesus' perspective on this again. Matthew chapter 5, and down in verse 14 of that chapter. Matthew chapter 5 and verse 14, you are the light of the world. A city set on a hill could not be hid. Everyone around you, those who work for you, those you work with, those who are your friends, your neighbors, your family members, they're watching. Can they see that you're transformed? I'll tell you something here that I find interesting. A while back, I guess it's been a couple years ago now, a new lady started at the bank. And I came in, I cashed the check that Jamie gave me. She goes, Merrill's Ridge Church of Christ. What do you have to do with Merrill's Ridge Church of Christ? So I go out there every Sunday night and preach with folks out there. We go to church out there on Sunday evenings. She's like, that's a great group of people. And she started naming names. She's like, Jamie and Denise still go there. Mike and Julie still go there. Patty still go out there. I'm like, yeah, you got the crowd. She said, those are great people. That's Gloria. She says, those are some of the nicest folks out there. One of these days, she's going to walk through that door. We're all going to, whoa. One of these days, they're going to do that. Matthew chapter 5, verse 14, you are the light of the world. A city set on a hill cannot be hidden, nor do people light a lamp and put it under a basket. That's just crazy, isn't it? Light something, then put a box over top of it. Turn on a light and put a blanket over it. We don't do that. Unless you're my kids, but it just shines. Transformation. You might say, what's a donut got to do with the scriptures? What's a donut got? What do you see? When you look at a donut, what do you see? Mr. Pessimist there. See, I was going to say, the pessimist, he says, well, it's not complete. There's a hole in the middle. There's a hole in a donut. There's something missing. The pessimists, they focus on what's missing. Obviously, given my size these days, I focus on what's left. I see a donut and I see something I'm not supposed to have, but I really enjoy it. Why? It's the difference between optimism and pessimism. A portion of our transformation as Christians is humility. Nobody likes an arrogant person. And you know why? Because Satan was arrogant. You look at Satan throughout history. I can't imagine Job chapter 1. The sons of God come and they present themselves. The angels come and they're presenting themselves to God. Satan comes. The audacity. He's been banned. He comes and presents himself to God. He is anything but humble. In fact, he taunts God in his throne room. Jesus is the opposite of that. Jesus came, King of Kings, Lord of Lords. He's born, nowhere to put him. He's born and they lay him in a manger. Now, I dare say they probably swept it out first, regardless of what Sally Ross wants to think. Miss Sally's got some interesting ideas on Jesus' birth. Well, look at what Solomon says, Ecclesiastes chapter 5. The wise man in Ecclesiastes chapter 5 at the end of his life is kind of looking back over life, and he's examining the purpose of his life. And a lot of people say, oh, it's such a depressing book. No, it's not. But it is a man who has seen the folly of his ways. And Solomon says in Ecclesiastes chapter 5 and verse 2, be not rash with your mouth, nor let your heart be hasty to utter a word before God. For God is in heaven, and you are on earth. Therefore let your words be few. Let your words be few. God's in heaven. He's our creator. And just the idea that he cared enough about you and me to send his son to die on the cross should be enough for us to feel very not only grateful certainly, but to be very humbled that God places the value on each of us that he does. A humble person does not look for the faults in those around him. I think maybe it's one of those things, and this is something that I have a bad habit of. I'm a terrible critic. I'm a terrible critic. Why? And I think people tend to become critics because it makes them feel better about themselves to find faults with others. But remember this, Jesus found all the faults with us. He still went to the cross. In fact, it was our faults, our weaknesses, our sins that made the necessity for him to go to the cross. Matthew chapter 7, verse 3. In that respect, Jesus says sorrow is better than laughter, for by sadness of face the heart is made glad. That's Ecclesiastes. Sorry, wrong passage. I saw chapter 7. I said, I'm right there, without even turning the page. But Matthew chapter 7, look what Jesus says, verse 3. Why do you see the speck that is in your brother's eye, but do not notice the log that is in your own eye? How can you say to your brother, let me take the speck out of your eye, when there is a log in your own eye? You hypocrite, first take the log out of your own eye, then you will see clearly to take the speck out of your brother's eye. What Jesus is saying is, be humble enough to fix your own faults before you go poking around in someone else's life.